All right, guys, welcome to Changing Gears episode number 9. My name is Tunn. This week I'm joined by regular old Toby, and we've got Colin, all the way from somewhere in the mid backcountry.
Virginia.
Virginia, right? Okay, that's pretty far away. What time? You're in PT time zone, are you? You're where the fuck?
I'm
is
Eastern
Virginia?
Standard. I'm 5 hours behind you, so it's 8 your time. I'm 3 p.m. That's why I tried to.
So bad.
That's not too bad.
That's not so bad. We had Guy on last week, and I'm pretty sure he'd just woken up at that point. But no, happy to have you on, Colin. Thank you very much for joining me and Tobes. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the Pro League. We're going to talk about Europe first because obviously, well, it's a European show, so that's how we roll. But it's getting a little bit more like how we thought, Toby, with EU's finest, sort of kicking it up now. They seem to sort of be there, and if everybody who's in here, we are going to talk about the escalation changes. I just want to get the Pro League stuff out of the way first. But EU's finest. Looking pretty good now, has to be said. Although they did get pushed to map number 3, but they still look good.
They still look very good. I was about to call you out on that one. They look great, but they did drop a map.
They did.
Hey, we predicted that they weren't going to drop a map, and this was going to be one of the easiest games of the Pro League season. But
well, that was it, wasn't it? That's what caught me off guard because our damage, it looked pretty shit the previous few weeks, and I wasn't too convinced. And last time they played each other as well, I was sort of like, well, that has not went well for our damage whatsoever. But that being said, I don't know what it was about them. They just seemed to. I think the map picks had something to do with it as well. I think bringing District out up against EU's finest, they hadn't played that in the Pro League yet, so it had been banned for I want to say 75%. Of their bans, of their first bans or something like that, had been District. So they've got rid of it a lot. And then they went in and played District against our damage and lost. Colin, I don't know if you caught any of the games, but
I was there for all 35 or 36 rounds y'all had.
Oh, bro. Long broadcast.
I was feeling so terrible for you and for. I was waiting for one of y'all to nod off and start snoring on me.
I had one of the guys from EGL, we got a Slack, a chat, and I was reading through it afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, I'm absolutely knackered here," and I made Tunny get up and get the train with me because me and Alex both live up north in England, and we go down, get the train to London each week beforehand, and he was like, "I made him get up early. I'm absolutely knackered," and he's up there casting. Honestly, I don't know if you could tell. I was destroyed by last map. We through Europe, we have had 2-0s every single game. There's been a couple of 7-6s here and there, but I think it was 37 rounds of gears that we cast, and the majority of them were fairly long. It wasn't like there wasn't many eliminations or anything like that. They were mostly long. So shout out to the everyone who respected the long broadcast that me and Fru did. But irrelevant to the point, yes, many rounds, close games, Colin.
Well, see, I talked about it when I got to go to Cheddar and talk about it. They were so used to people only talking about North America that when I threw the monkey wrench into their plans, I said, hey, look, I got to mention this EU league. I got to talk about our damage playing EU's finest. Because for me, I saw our damage on the come up because I really saw them having this familiarity with these teams. Those players had a lot of experience in Gears 4 learning how to play on this top tier level. And now that they've played kind of the same teams week in and week out, on this setting of escalation. Now it's changed, of course, but they got a sense of familiarity. They knew how people would play spots. They knew how EU's finest would like to play certain maps. And if you study enough and you make the right rotations, you can sneak up on somebody. They win that map, they get it to a map 3, and if they might have lost 7-4, but it's not like it was a 7-4 knockout punch. It was a 7-4 EU's finest had to work for all 7 rounds that they won. And I think that's something to be said for how close, even though you're getting a lot of 2-0s in the European region, you are getting a lot of 2-0s that have a lot of 7-6s involved in them. Those 4 teams are battling like their life depended on them.
Yeah, and I think, we'll talk about the other game as well, but it is a testament to how close Europe is. I do think there is a gap from EU's finest. I do think there is a definite small gap from those guys, outside of week number 1 where they didn't look that great. But I think other than that, everything's pretty close. I know Rated R sitting at the bottom, and they played against they played against OB Alliance this week, and that was a super close game as well in the end. But I think Rated R's at bottom, but they could realistically be second. That's the thing. They've had 2 7-6 losses on last map or the second map against OB Alliance now, and I don't know if it's me and Fareed talked about it as well during the broadcast to say they just can't win a 7-6. I think they've won 1 out of 4 that they've hit. 1 out of 4 round number 13s that they've hit. They've won 1 of them. And that is a concern, surely, or is it maybe just unlucky?
I mean, it's a very good point, actually.
I mean, they're never going to have to see them again, thankfully for them. There's no more round 13s, they're gone.
You assume from that they're a team that really rides high momentum, and if they can't play their own game at their own pace, and they suddenly start, losing their way a little, as soon as the pressure builds up and the other team starts pacing the game, if you will, winning on their own merits, that Rated R perhaps slump back in the chairs a little and can't perform as usual. I think the greatest thing to look at to summarize this week and the scores that we've seen is the round differential on the actual standings, the official standings.
Yeah.
Look at EU's finest, right? They're sitting on top with 3 wins, and our damage just below, they have 2 wins. That's not too much of a difference. But if you look at the round difference, EU's finest have 10, a positive 10, while our damage only have 2. And if you simply go down the table, you kind of start to see a certain familiarity in that sense. EU's finest, they win oftentimes 2-0, clear, really clear cut, easy. If they're performing as they should be, really winning flawlessly, if you will, in each map. We didn't see that in this week, as I think you pointed out rightly, Tunn. The maps were perhaps a little bit odd. Safe to say, 7-6 on Bunker was map 2, and I think if that was a more familiar map for EU's finest against our damage, that could have been easily a 2-0, right? And just a standard EU's finest game. Perhaps that was that one spanner in the works. But then let's look at Obey Alliance. Their round difference, they have -9, yet Rated R below them only have -3. Okay,
I'll point that to week number 1 of when Rated R smoked EU's finest. Sure, I think that's the thing, is like you can go to round difference to a point, but I think it's like one of these things where that first week really sort of upset the odds a little bit and has skewed the table somewhat, I feel.
It did in all 3 regions. Week 1 was just this head scratcher for all 3 regions.
Yeah.
Nobody went to chalk. And I think looking at round differential, kind of there's an old saying in golf. You can score really well, but you hit it all over the course because a scorecard doesn't have pictures. Looking at round differential, it's not giving you the totality of the picture of how these teams are playing. I think when you look at a team like Rated R, their biggest fault, kind of like how you were talking, Toby, you were getting closer to hitting the nail on the head, if you ask me. They ride high on their momentum. They ride high on playmaking. The rounds that they win, somebody pops off early in the round. Boom, boom. They get 1 or 2 kills right here off the rip, and the other 2 guys don't have to support. They push forward. That third guy caps that hill, and they move forward, keep a pressure on a team. So it is to that momentum standpoint, but I think they rely a little too heavily on somebody kind of having that pop-off moment, somebody getting that double kill somewhere on the map, and I think that's what comes back to bite them. And around 13, you've got to be able to look at yourselves as a complete team and make a push or defend against a push as a unit and not just rely on, hey, look, he's a superstar. He's going to make this happen for us. And that's what I think their biggest fault is they keep relying on the superstar.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's like their fault is their... I think it's one of these things, though, where it's their strength is these initials, but if it doesn't pull off, it seems to be like, well, shit, what do we do now? Which is an issue. And I think a lot of people were like, I mean, they were called a nonny before they went over to Rated R, and people were calling them annoyed because of the way that they play, and it was just they're so aggressive and etc. etc. But people are learning to get used to this now, it seems, and catching them off guard. They're still a very talented team. Sometimes when you see them in like 1v2 situations, Sergio especially, disgusting player. Like his movement's insane.
His
like,
mechanical ability is bar none.
It's
you
there.
Put him up there.
Yeah, it's absolutely there. But it just seems as if on occasion where they need to make a flurry of kills, they can get it done. But can they grind out rounds? You don't see that often, and I think that's an issue for them. Let's talk positives for Obey Alliance, though. I would say a good, solid win in the end. A couple of players coming up. TJ, that play on Icebound, I was nearly sick.
I know.
Ridiculous. So coming up with players like that, because they would have. I mean, that would have been 2-0. If TJ does not make that play, they lose the map. They lose the round. They lose the map. They lose the series. So that. I mean, do you think it's one of these things that, again, we talk about Rated R's momentum? Do you think that's a real punch in the gut? That's one of those situations where you're on the cusp of a dominating win. You're about to win it. easy stuff, and then TJ does that sort of thing. They then lose the round. They then lose the map, and you're like, well, shit. We were literally 2 kills away from winning the series.
Yeah, I think, your point on rated R and the momentum, intensity, etc., and riding on it, and mine as well. I think historically you can see that as well, right? As the game was, earlier on in its development, and these teams were in the Pro League, they were still scrimming, working things out. That reliance on slaying ability and playmaking and winning off initials is going to be a lot more effective in the long run. There's not going to be as many weapons, in the toolbox to play with for these different teams. And I think, you've nailed it there. These different teams now know how to respond to this team. They know how to better play against them on initials. They've started working them out, and they've come up with their own strategies to ultimately, swing the balance in how many rounds they can accrue. That TJ play, really, that is one variable that has to be considered when you look at that 2-1 scoreline. But you've got to give it to Obey. They've gone from strength to strength. You mentioned it in week 1. They started off, in shambles. This is exactly not what they wanted to have. And then all of a sudden it's kind of flipped. And now Rated R is at the bottom of the table. Obey are getting these tough victories under their belt. They're going to be going strength to strength, and riding on that, that long-term momentum, that belief in their capability, which is something I've before questioned on this podcast. They've struggled to win these tough games, but now they actually are doing exactly that. Their biggest weakness, their biggest flaw as individuals and as a team over the different Gears titles. And so now Obey, they're capable of anything at this point. They can keep going head to head. Our damage is in second place. They've also just been improving as time goes on, it seems, in terms of their results. Their experience is clearly shining through as they get those tough wins against, Rated R and whatnot. And I think Obey will be looking at our damage now. They've both got 2 wins, 2 losses. They have no reason not to aim for second at this point, and actually believe they can consistently get on a very good playing field against our damage and continue their success against Rated R.
100%. Any closing arguments on this one, Colin? I think we've pretty much covered most of it.
Yeah, I like I said, I that's why I keep my eyes on the EU. I love listening to you guys talk about it, and I think people need to pay this region a little bit more attention, because all these close games, all these nail biters, all this practice is only going to pay off in a few weeks, because when it's for these teams, when it's single elimination after that Swiss standing, they've already dealt with the fact that they've been in these close matchups, these grudge matchups going forward. They can handle that pressure then going into a land situation, because it's win or go home at that point. And I think this is really going to pay dividends going forward for some of these teams, because they felt that inclining pressure week in and week out with how close your region is.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things that we said about Europe, is that the fact that they're playing each other in a serious competitive setting, like scrims only tell so much, a couple of online tournaments only tell so much. These Pro League games matter a lot, like to a point, of course, but I think it's one of those things where when they are playing against each other more, the gap closes. You get better the more that you play against this strong competition week in, week out. So, thank you for watching, Colin. Yeah, I expect in San Diego you be the European man. You should know everything, because we
have a weird
there,
accent compared to you. Like, I'm not going to sound half as intelligent talking about him, but damn it, I'm going to give it my best.
If Ben can change his accent one way, you can change yours back this way. So I'm sure you'll be able to do that. But let's move on to what everybody does want to talk about this week. We'll cover the American side of Pro League later on, because I'm keen to get into this one. Huge Escalation update, humongous. One that initially seen was met very positively with the community. I think we've talked about it so many times on Changing Gears that we just feel as if Escalation is just that little bit too long. We sometimes have referenced it back to, you look at games of Counter-Strike, you look at games of League of Legends, they're long, but they have a developing story. It's one of these things where there's plenty of variables changing all the time in that bit. But whereas Escalation felt very much like we were watching the same rounds over and over again, and it sometimes did get a little bit repetitive, etc. They have lowered it down. For anybody who hasn't seen the update, where have you been? But also I will put it in the chat just to let you guys have a read through it if you haven't. But just to read through it for anybody who is listening and does not have access to the link, of course, rounds to win was 7, has now went down to 5. The initial lives you start with were 5, has went down to 4. The max lives you can now get is 4, which was 5. Respawn duration reduction per round is now -2 seconds. It was -1 second per round. Disable duration, you can only disable a weapon for 1 round. It was 3 rounds at a time. And secondary weapon placements, this is probably one of the most important ones. Boom shot and drop shot can no longer be placed on secondary home weapon slots. So basically, only in the middle of the map, which is cool. Right, initial impressions. Toby, go.
Amazing. I was so happy to read this. I mean, I'm a little biased, I guess. I'm not, competing anymore. It's been a long time. And so when I see players complaining that it's so close to San Diego, I'm like, look, I see what you're saying, mate, but I'm actually very happy that the first major event of this game is going to be first to 5 escalation, not first to 7. A lot of players and fans will be tuning in. They'll be like, I've had a really good experience with Gears 5, but I'm not sure about esports. Let's give it another go. Let's see how it is. Hey, we've now got a better system to present on that all-important first-time basis, right? I love that. Maybe even players who don't really like Gears 5, but they're still willing to look at Gears esports stream. They're going to give it a go. Maybe they appreciate this. Maybe think, oh, escalation's shorter now. Let's actually go play it in rank, see if it's better than I experienced back in Gears 4. I love that. I love that portion of it.
I want to touch on the whole argument of it being close to San Diego a little bit later. Colin, what's your first impressions of the changes?
If I could marry the changes, I would, because I
You
love
just got
them that
married.
much. No. I will trade her in for these changes of escalation. I love them that much. I saw the changes, and I understand the detriment arguments that a lot of pros came out with and stuff, where they talked about the closest to the proximity to the event and all that stuff. But I think what they're not seeing the forest for the trees. We get less rounds for you to have to win. Sure, it puts more pressure on you, but also with the lower amount of respawns, with the lower total number of lives, with the drop shots, with the big power weapons, the rockets having to be centerline again, we get this very old school feeling, because now the pressure's heightened. You don't want to throw an extra life away. You don't want to possibly take that next retake a little more seriously. You want to wait for everybody to get off spawn. So you get this kind of pseudo execution feel that everybody seems to gravitate toward anyway. The game is going to be really fast right now, because teams are still going to be used to, I've got to win 7 rounds. So if I've got to throw away 2 or 3 lives on round 1, so be it. Over these next 2 weeks, I actually expect to see a little bit of the opposite. I expect to see teams gravitate toward that idea of a really hard fought initial with some utility placed early, with maybe a power weapon placed down in the middle if the fights are not going your way. But, start with that utility for your front spawn players. Start with the ability to make the correct pushes, and it's going to lengthen the time of the rounds out. They're going to feel so much more heightened, so much more like every single movement will begin to matter that much more, because there's less rounds for you to be able to give away before you lose. There's less rounds for you to be able to deal with in lives and respawns, and especially with halftime being quicker now in the game and having the reset come, everything to me has just been turned up. I don't think people have noticed that yet. I played a lot of ranked, but that doesn't mean anything in comparison to like the pro league. And you can tell that it is quicker. People are still used to that 7 rounds type thing. So I hope that people adjust to it quickly.
Yeah.
But I love these changes. I love them, love them, love them.
I think our first impression, at least, will obviously become on Sunday, Monday. Obviously, when the pro league starts, I think it will be slower. In the pro league, at least, I think people will be taking a lot more priority on their health. On their lives. But one thing I did want to speak about was specifically was about the fact that it was 2 weeks before San Diego and the implications we feel that will have. Now, from my standpoint, and people are going to call me a soup, but I think that what Toby said was very, very right, is that, our first impression of a big event is going to be on these changes. Yes, okay, this has been played since the beginning of the game, but ultimately, I think, it's not like... For me, it would be worse if a huge movement or shotgun change came in. I think that's so much worse, because that's then you having to adapt to
that
everything.
Actually happened in Gears 4. You know that, right, Tunn?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it was right before Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think that will be worse.
6 had a shotgun change to where the L trigger on the shotgun became basically a small nuclear missile.
Yeah, I think that would personally, for me, be worse, because the thing is, the fundamentals have not changed. It's still the same game mode. To a point, I would say that the biggest change in terms of what you have to really adapt to is the weapons. The rounds and the lives are an aspect of it. But I think that the weapons is the biggest thing you have to really adapt to. And for me, some teams, you already played this iteration of it somewhat, because obviously there has been mid-drops occasionally, especially in Europe at least anyway. And I think that for me, I think they will get over it pretty quickly. I know there has been some sort of some discontent. And a couple of people talking about the overkill, obviously being used a lot, and a few people are saying that's pretty powerful. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say, and I'm sure we will see it over Sunday and Monday of how powerful it is in certain situations. I know it's a good gun, obviously, but it's interesting to see how it's going to be used competitively. But in terms of how long they have to change, they have to adapt to it, I think we're okay. I'm surprised that it happened. I'm not going to lie. I did think if they're going to make the changes, it'll be after San Diego. Get the split out the way. I think for me, it's more, I'm most so concerned about the integrity of the league's results than actually San Diego. I think San Diego, they should be able to adapt to that, but the fact is we played 4 league games on one patch and then 2 on a completely different game mode. So that's where I'm sort of like a little bit like, so like, well, I think you could have maybe waited, but then again, it's that situation of do you wait and then do San Diego on this long game mode? Do you mind if I play
devil's advocate on that point?
Go ahead.
The integrity of the pro league matches. I hate to say this, but if you look across all the leagues right now and the way the standings are, the 3 teams that if before the pro league started, if I told you to forcefully pick 3 teams out of each of those and which team is going to go to relegation, I'm pretty sure right now the 4 teams that are going to relegation are the 4 teams you would have picked before that. So I'm not sure if you're actually upsetting the natural order of things, if that makes sense.
Well, we won't see till Monday. Is what I'll say back to that.
Hey, look, I can make that statement now, baby.
We'll see what happens on Monday when EU's finest get toasted 7-0, 5-0, 5-0.
Yeah, if EU's finest comes out and loses, 0-2 and just gets absolutely obliterated, I might issue a public apology. I might come out there. I think
it's in theory, though. In theory, I think it's one of those things we can't think about. But I like the fact that there's a change come. I think ultimately it needed to happen. There's been a lot of people having issues, etc., etc. I think it needed to happen. And just sentiment one guy said in his tweet, now give me a one life game mode. Bring that in and we're happy.
Oh, baby.
And we're happy.
Just imagine that. Execution or a
so you come back to compete if they bring execution back?
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Scrims daily. Just go straight to Xbox. Forget PC. Just throw it out the window. I'm like, no. Honestly, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Chris. I looked at the backlash, if we'll call it that, on Twitter from the pros. I saw tweets from Ashes. I saw Franchise, who said he believes everything he's done so far in Gears 5 is now a waste of time. I think it's a little overblown. I mean, I think you summarized it perfectly. We've dropped the round count, okay? We've not changed the game at its core mechanics. It's not as if we've gone, say, imagine...
The biggest change is the weapon movement.
The huge weapon.
The biggest change is the weapon movement. 100%.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's that a complicated a change. I think a marksman nerf is a lot more impactful to how the game or how weapons can be placed than a drop shot and boom shot to center line, to be honest, because we've all played with these weapons before, these teams, and I don't think depth would drastically change, at a really deep level, at least in terms of strategy for these teams. I think it's a relatively quick adaptation over this 2-week period. Yeah, I think Pro League, maybe that's a bit too soon for teams to be confident in exactly what they're doing in XYZ time. But that just comes down to teams going back to looking at their VODs and researching and finding out the optimal strategies as quickly as they can in 2 weeks. Listen,
you talk about Franchise saying everything he did up till now was a waste. You think he woke up the next morning and said, "Oh man, I still got rushies and powers on my team. If I got to go fight for a drop shot in the middle of the map, I'm all right.
Exactly,
I'm sitting pretty. I'm fine."
I know you haven't changed the game all that much. We're acting as though, in my opinion, a lot of the pros are acting as though we have always played Escalation with the goal of perhaps losing the first 2 rounds. No, we have not. We've never liked losing a round just for the sake of it. We've always aimed to win as many rounds as we can. And so that doesn't change. That would be a fundamental change, for example. If the goal, say, let's think about Counter-Strike, where economy is involved, where teams literally do choose to save their money and opt to say, hey, we'll lose this round in interest of long-term gain, then I understand it. But in Gears, I don't think we've ever had that occasion where we're like, oh, let's lose the round for a weapon placement or something. I don't think that's ever been on any pro team's mind. And as such, I think, based on those points, I don't think it's that massive of a change.
It's not huge. It's not huge. It's good in a way. I think I said the weapon placements is probably the biggest contention with it all. I haven't seen anybody complain about like the rounds or the live so much. I think everyone will adapt to that irrelevant. Breaker's just put in the chat that the overkill is a joke. I'd just like you to, Breaker, if you can, just maybe expand on it a little bit. And we know it's powerful. We do know it's powerful. I think I've seen a couple of tweets saying like how much ammo it has is an issue. But things like that could potentially be changed pretty quickly. And hopefully anyway, if it is a big issue,
really is the biggest issue because of how powerful it is. Like they wanted to make it a viable weapon, like where you could pick it up basically instead of your Nasher and not have to worry about ever being in a shotgun fight, because you could still mid-range and then short range chunk people decently easy. But they gave it literally so much reserve ammo.
How much is it, like 40 ammo or something?
Yeah, 40 right now I believe is the reserve, and they made the reload for it. The reload for it is was lightning buffed. Fast.
Yeah,
so you could literally you could throw basically small rockets at human beings and just hope that they just don't come into your lane. You're like, oh, he's coming down the hallway, and then you just start throwing overkill down the hallway. Nobody's really going to rush that because you get damage with any full spread will either put you down or basically make you just like regret ever living.
To be devil's advocate on the overkill, right? It's something that I've had a pet peeve on for a while, and I know Alex he's really been vocal about teams having their own identity, their own strategy, and trying to design the weapon placement system around their team and being a bit more unique. But the overkill, I feel like, was an underappreciated weapon in Gears 4. We so rarely saw it in pro play. Yet that weapon, you throw that on home street and you instantly change a 1v1 shotgun into an overkill 1v1 shotgun. And just that fact alone, I believe, was so undervalued in terms of pro play. If you're losing 1v1 consistently, and you've got only really support weapons in the form of a Marks or a Hambus just to slow down play, and that's all you can do. It just forces non-contention. Why don't you just throw the overkill once in a while to see if you can actually out overkill another player with a weapon that is rarely used? And the reason I think now the Gears 5 overkill has been buffed so much since Gears 4 is because the devs have looked at that and thought, this weapon's never used.
Yeah.
Let's make people use it.
Same thing happened to the Markza. They wanted rifle play to be the thing. They didn't want movement to be the shining example of how you won games. That's why people didn't place a lot of these weapons in Gears 4, is because a lot of the top end players, that skill gap between the best 5 teams in the world and everybody else, is those best 5 teams didn't really place these weapons, because at the end of the day, they were like, screw it, I'll be able to outmaneuver most of anything somebody throws at me, get close to them, and then use that Nasher to kill them. So there's no point in us wasting a weapon placement on putting a weapon that's not going to be beneficial for us, because we're going to be able to outmaneuver it. And now we've seen the pendulum swing in the opposite direction, where it's like, oh, holy shit, I can't just bounce my life away and hope that somebody just gets close enough for me to hit him with an Asher.
No. Yeah. I think what Breaker is saying is fair. I think it's fair. It's, so if anybody who's obviously not in the chat and listening to this at a later date, that overkill is powerful and the amount of ammo in it is mad. If you win an initial, it's so hard to break that setup if they have an overkill. Makes it very difficult. I think we'll see it adapt, though. I think we'll see it change around a little bit. If it does become something that is more prevalent and used a lot, it wouldn't surprise me to see TC change it up. If that is the case, I hope they do. But we'll see. We will see what happens with the overkill. Any other concerns from you guys about the changes? When we're thinking about lives, etc. Are we happy that it'll slow these things down a little bit? You would think that's what it should do.
Yeah,
I
know, Colin, you're saying it seems fast and ranked, but I think we'll probably see something very different.
Even in the first few scrims, I got to sit into 2 different scrims. I'm not going to state the teams that let me sit in on them, but one of them was like 14 and a half minutes to go the distance, and they literally played their friggin' hearts out, went the distance, went to round, thank God, 9. They were like, we're going to do this, and they went to round 9. It was still like 14 minutes long, and I was like, dude, I'm casting for 14 minutes for a full map, like a full possible map, or like a best of 1 or whatever. Thank Jesus. But then, like, at the end of the day, I sat in for their full 5 map rotation, and it felt like we just finished 1.5 maps of Escalation when we got done with all 5. And I was like, this is the wave. Teams are playing a lot faster right now, but they're going to adjust. They're going to rein it in. It's just figuring out that range that you've got to go with. Like, can I get a little aggressive in rounds 1 and 2 still? Like, how teams were throwing away maybe an extra respawn in round 1 or 2 in this Escalation? Maybe you only throw away that extra 1 life in round 1 just to see if you can break a setup if it is close, because the rounds are still crucial, especially with only being able to give up 5 before you lose. You still have to make that decision. But now I think that even heightens the coaching position a little bit more, because a coach can, even with that win, oh God, the word escapes me, but having the win condition up top. Yeah, having the win condition up top. I think a coach can actually tell you, hey, look, we got a number over here. Go ahead and throw your respawn up. Let's make sure we win this round 1, because then we're only 4 rounds away from the map. So
yeah. Go on, Toby. Go on.
I was going to say it's something that we've overlooked, I guess, a little bit as well. Is just us as casters. When it's first to 5, yeah, obviously we have a short game and that's nice for us. But because it's first to 5, every round matters that much more fundamentally, and we can actually start from a more intense position when we're commentating, play-by-play analysis, and just on analysis as well, as in terms of depth. Every weapon placement matters that much more now. Every single round matters that much more. And so if a team has a certain strategy they'd like to go on with a weapon placement scheme, that will have much more of an impact, a significant determinant on the result of the game. And so developing these unique strategies and identity that Fru always talks about is actually a bit more valuable now. It's a bit more beneficial. The disabled duration has been reduced to 1 round.
Yeah, I wanted to speak about
that. Which is something for sure. And I think looking at lives as well, mind you, we've reduced the round count from first 7 to first 5, but we've only reduced the lives by 1. So it's not that massive when you look at it that way.
I suppose that the lives would have been used at one of those other potential 4 rounds. 3 rounds, 4 rounds.
I mean, max lives is 4 as well. I think, looking at that as well, team players can't just go on a rampage and build their lives up as high, to 5 and think they have as much of a cushion. So if there is a streak of deaths, I guess that is a bit more impactful, something that players really do have to look out for now. They haven't got as much of a buffer, but every round matters that much more for casters, for players, for fans. And
can you imagine if we get to a round 9 and everybody has 0 respawns?
Oh,
God, it's round 9 execution.
Something else.
It's round 9 execution now. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Imagine.
That'd be so cool, man.
It's happened to rated R a lot. They've got a lot of times where they've had 0 lives and quite a lot of people go.
That's what I mean. Yeah. They're all in. They're all in. They
go
all
the time. I love the commitment. I love the commitment.
Yeah, if it doesn't work out, then so be it. But
then here we are.
We've given our best.
I want to talk about the disabled duration. In my head, this makes it a bit more tactical in terms of using the disable anyway, because I think with the round length, with how many rounds we had in the 3-round disable duration, it was one of those things that if somebody threw it down, you just threw it down straight back. And it's one of these things where it was just an exchange of things. But having that 1, sometimes I suppose you can sort of say to yourself, well, 1 round difference. What advantage can we get from that? What can we use instead? What else can we build, even though this is being disabled? So I think it's one of those things where that might be used a bit more tactically. In my head, it makes sense, but I don't know.
It's a match point strategy now. It's not I'm going to throw it out because I'm losing this fight. Or I'm not going to throw it out because you've got extra rockets than I do. I'm on match point. This fight is pretty back and forth, but I got confidence in us on this side of the map. We've been doing pretty good on the opposite side of the map. Let's go ahead and disable this 1 gun for this 1 round, try to put this thing away.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more strategic for sure. With it, again, short round count combined, you could really see teams now actually, storing that away, that disable. Like, oh, the other team just disabled, right? Keep ours. I've got an idea here. For the next 2 rounds, we'll do this. And then if that's not working, we will throw the spanner in the works and change everything up in 1 round, 1 instant. I'm really glad, actually. Shout out to TC for actually doing that, reducing the duration, because it wouldn't make sense, I think. Obviously keeping it 3, but also 2 rounds as well. Bring it down straight to 1. Have that impact strategy, that impact play that it can now provide. And I think you nailed it on the head. We saw on Gears 4, a lot of teams would just they would assume that a disable is just, hey, we like this initial. Let's just throw a disable down in the middle of the map, even though there's nothing there. We're just going to put it down and keep things away the same. Instead, it's now a much more impactful thing for sure. I really like it.
And Kenny just pointing out that there's nothing worth disabling until you get to 4-4. So I mean, I suppose it goes to that important. And maybe that in that case it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll obviously see somebody else building something, but it could.
Yeah, but you'll see that change too, because they're going to have to adapt to the fact that once they've changed certain things about how many rounds you have to play with, there's no way they can look at the way their weapon trees are built right now and not make a change on that as well. Like you have to adjust just because you adjust lives and number of rounds in totality. There's still a third part of your game mode that you have to look at. And that's what they'll probably use either these first 2 weeks or they'll use San Diego for it. If we leave San Diego and we see that the disable's never getting used, you'll probably see an update or a patch where they'll say, all right, look, we're going to make it to where you can get something beneficial in 2 rounds, get something beneficial quicker so that it does happen. But I think right now you just look at it as a match point too.
And I think to further reiterate your point is that this is still the first. We're going to be still in sort of testing this new escalation by the time we get to San Diego to a point, which I know a lot of people complained about, etc., etc. But to be fair, I think there still could be changes after San Diego based on what we see at San Diego. So I don't think anyone's under the illusion that this is escalation. This is how it is now. Like, things could change. Things could. There's
a 0.1 on that too right now. There's a 2.1, baby. You can get 2.2, 2.3,
exactly.
2.1.
Exactly.
There's a whole lot of numbers that I can't count too that we can still get to, baby.
So things could very much change. I'll go to questions in the chat pretty shortly. Just what Kenny's saying. So Kenny's saying, my problem with this whole change, it's 2 weeks before San Diego, but they didn't even change the weapon tree to make something really go down. Kind of makes the map naked now compared to having 700 explosives. So it makes it more just about the shotgun engagements, the lancer engagements, etc., etc. Are we happy about that in that respect? Because it's not something I really thought about myself. It was more so of a like, I was thinking, well, okay, these weapon trees. I'm thinking of like a 13-round game.
It's because teams right now, they went back to the E-League setup. Give utility to our front spawns. Get nades to our first front spawn players. We're going back to the E-League meta of get them flashes or get them flashes or get them smokes, and then possibly give like one a pistol if we need to. But it's going there and then going extra home hill utility grenades. We're going back to that meta to set up a possible final round center line, all the marbles in the basket, drop or boom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
which is going to make them interesting, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I think the map feeling naked, that could be a very valid point. I don't think I've watched enough games to really confirm whether that's the defining characteristic of this change for me personally. But I mean, I'll take Kenny's word for it. It could honestly be the case, as he rightfully says, the weapon tree hasn't been adjusted to reflect that. But I think the key issue for a long time in the weapon placement is just that a lot of weapon placements simply do not impact the game in terms of how rounds go down. The gameplay doesn't change that much. Result of rounds don't seem to change that much due to weapons. The exception is perhaps the marks are being, overpowered compared to where it once was. I think that was, a big change in gameplay. It's
not so bad now.
From that weapon. Not so bad now. But I mean, let's look what we've had so far. We've had this meta from the very start of this game, slight change with the marks and nerf of we're seeing the same utility go down, the same weapons. And I think instead of having all those weapons on the maps at 7 different times, every team has a drop shot and things going in fast. I think a naked map, to term it that way, is actually better than having a chaotic map with the same weapons going down, rockets being thrown everywhere.
I would say from a competitive standpoint, it should be a level playing field a little bit more now. It's not about who hits their drops better. It's more about how your core game plays. To a point.
Exactly. Well, and obviously every weapon placement now matters that much more. And so if it's going to seem naked, then that means every single decision you make on the weapon placement has to matter. It matters a lot. And so if you only have that many weapon placement opportunities, they better be good. And as such, we'll enjoy actually seeing how teams manage that going forward.
I think one of the things that we'll see, because of course I touched on it earlier, they're going to see something. They're going to see a weapon tree tweak more likely than not, more sooner rather than later, more likely than not. But what I think we're going to notice is that the meta hopefully will change from anything you can do, I can do better, which is I put my flash on home, you put your flash on home, I put my smoke on home, you put your smoke on home. I think what they need to do when they tweak it is make it more about creating that team identity. Like one of the things that we tried to press home so much was how good players like when we used to see Kenny, even though they had it on homes, Kenny could get a drop on a home and become the most versatile player on the map because he still had the move and he still had shotgun ability. But with a drop shot in his hands, he could get a double kill here. He could get a triple kill here. Even in Gears 4, if Kenny could get the drop and his team gave him the drop, he was the biggest threat on the map with it, not because it's a rocket, but because of how skilled he was with it. I think what you have to do is allow for teams to have a little bit of freedom with their weaponry placements on the home hills to build up those secondary rifles so that they can allow their marksmen, their non-front tip of the spear players, their non-Nasher in the initial fight players to build up a team identity. So instead of anything you can do, I can do better, it's anything you can do, I've got a counter for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see the changes in action. I know we've seen scrims, etc. We've seen Twitter comments and whatnot, but the proof is in the pudding. We will see what happens on Sunday and Monday. I'm going to keep a keen eye on the American broadcast to see how things are rolling there, so I can get some sort of idea how it's going to happen on Monday. at least the guys over there have got to deal with it first, and I do not. But I just want to have a look at the results in North America and Latin America throughout the week. Struggling to currently find the actual. Let's have a look. There we go. All right, results. There we go. Just trying to get these all up, so I'm not just spouting nonsense.
Stop sprouting nonsense. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Right. I know. But nothing too crazy going on. We don't think anyway. I think across the board, it is sort of in Europe, specifically in North America, people at the top is sort of who you expected. People at the bottom is sort of who you expect. So North America, Colin, nothing too crazy going on right now.
No, I think the thing that we've gotten to see, and I really love it, is the only big surprise to me, but it's because of turnover. Gods and Work Harder have a lot of seasoned veteran players, but they got dropped from so many other teams and kept having to reconfigure their rosters week in and week out during those weeks leading up to when the Pro League was finally formed, that there's no real time to build that chemistry. So they, of course, had to suffer the consequences of not having that chemistry. I think one of the biggest story or the biggest surprise coming out of North America is how quickly the young guns from Hive matured between 4 and 5, and how they took all that gun skill and all that movement skill they had in Gears 4 and brought it over to Gears 5. They're sitting at 3-1 now. They're right on the heels of Mazer and Bravo, which I think is going to be one of the marquee matchups that we got to pay attention to in these last few weeks, because Hive wants that top spot. They're young, they're hungry, they have a great coach behind them in Crazy Train. Hive is the big surprise for, I think, a lot of people because of their youth, but they've matured a lot in their gameplay and how they can take advantage and how they can get setups. But I think at the end of the day, the next semester of Pro League or whatever you say, if they reset these things, it's a crying shame to me. Like, I'm not complaining that I get to see Rec play NRG or that they're in the same division, but god damn, having 1 and 2 in the same division just hurts my soul every now and again.
Yeah, you won't get to see that, I suppose, with the separate divisions. But I don't think surely they don't cross it over. Surely, I don't think they would. I think they maybe mix up underneath, but I don't think they'll ever put 1 and 2. Although, would it be based on? Would it be based on San Diego placements?
I don't remember reading anything like that. I think it's actually literally like, this is who your division is, except for who's relegated.
Yeah,
congratulations,
course, yeah.
This is where you are, unless after the fall season it resets for the spring season and you have to go through the whole weekly tournament process again.
I don't think they would make a reset again. Okay, they might change it. They probably won't. But either way, I think, I mean, one thing, the disparity that I was looking at, just across the board, just from looking at the tables, is like the round difference. Like, EU's Finest at a solid 10 plus, NRG plus 30. It's like the competition on that side of things. Obviously,
them boys is good, Chris.
Yeah, they're real good.
We don't know how to talk.
They're real good. we know they're good, but wow, I mean that's above and beyond everybody else over that side of things. But no surprises there. But I think ultimately everyone seems to be enjoying the Pro League. I think it's been a good spectacle. Having these competitive games week in, week out sort of gives you a good balance going into San Diego. You sort of can get a good idea now of where everybody's at, and I'm looking forward to it. Colin, while I've got you, just in case that you aren't on before 3 weeks' time, who's taking San Diego? I want some sort of predictions out of you, just in case we don't have you on the show. Whew. I know there's more Pro League to play.
Goodness.
Oh, this is actually a really hard one because we just completely changed Escalation.
I don't even get to see how the changes in Escalation work out. I got to give you predictions now.
No, do it now.
Oh, God.
I do it at these two. I usually do it to Toby and through. I'm just like, we're just having a conversation. All right, who's winning this week?
God, you gonna make me put my staple on it 3 weeks out before these changes. Look, hey, if they don't change the weapon trees, I can't help myself. At the end of the day, they won too many damn championships. If they don't make a weapon tree change and we don't get to see a big change in the meta, you're going to see NRG and Rec in the finals. I think EU's Finest puts up the best fight against NRG earlier in the tournament, but they fall short to them probably in a top 4 situation. And then you'll probably see a team like Ghost or a team like Mazer maybe make that big splash on a championship Sunday that you've never gotten to see and come through that tournament bracket and go up against a Reciprocity. But I think you see NRG and I think you see Reciprocity in the grand finals. You see that same old song and dance that we've seen so many times before. But I think they learned from their past mistakes. 4/5 of that team on Reciprocity was the first team to ever win 7 rounds in a row against what was what they used to be under, what the redacted team. Now they're NRG. They're redacted back then. They won 7 rounds in a row.
We don't speak of that now.
We don't talk about them here. But single elimination, I'll put my staple on it. I'll go ahead and be the bad guy. I think the Empire stays strong. I think NRG gets another trophy under their name. Until I see differently, it's hard for me to bet against them. You got to prove me wrong first.
I think that's fair. I don't think anyone would really go outside of that. I think it's considering the situation that we're in, where everything is changing up a little bit now. To a point, I think it's hard to ask you to predict something crazy. So I'll let you off of the not so bold prediction. Toby, I know we're going to have you on, but it's only fair.
Oh no!
That I asked you to.
I would say similar, to be honest, almost exact same. I'm curious to see how EU's Finest do against NA teams because I haven't seen any of that just yet.
I think that's the thing. This is the first. This is the test, isn't it? Like, I think that nobody really sort of thought they would do as well last year as they did before the first event, obviously. But then after that, everyone was like, "Holy shit, EU's Finest!" But yeah. I think it's one of these things where we see how they do this.
Here's the thing, mate. I think EU's Finest, they're going to benefit from this update and escalation. First to 5, more execution feely, more in your face, games over within a flash of a second. I think that really benefits EU's Finest strengths. It's not so much their playstyle, it's just their raw capability as individuals. They can go up against these pro teams. These pro teams be like, we've just lost 3 rounds of the trot against a team we've not practiced against, and we can't win any shotgun battles. What do we do now? Well, you've got 2 rounds to figure that out, not 4. And you better make sure all your weapon placements can actually stop this now, because you still only have those rounds and those initials. And I think
with the whole single eliminate, I think with the sort of whole single elim sort of side of things as well, it's like it's one of those where people are going to have to adapt pretty quickly to how they play. And you want to hope unfortunately for you, any of the VOD that you're watching a pro league has me talking on it, so you're going to have to put up with it, but you're going to have to watch that VOD because you need to know how these guys are playing. You're not playing them week in, week out. You haven't scrimmed them, you haven't played them at all. As far as, have they played any NA teams? I think they may have scrimmed a couple of them, but I'm not 1,000,000% sure. I don't want to say for definite. But outside of a couple of scrims here and there, that's all they would know.
I think EU's Finest, if they're performing properly at their best, I can see them coming top 4. I just can't see them doing anything crazy like top 2 right now. Maybe not even top 3 because they're
just Hydro has to throw a smoke and get another triple kill.
They need to get loose.
That was stupid.
Oh, 100%. I mean, look at Craze. Like individually, they're still there. Craze has got what's it?
I want to check the stats because we haven't actually talked about
the stats back up because Craze, something we need to stress to everyone in Gears Esports is that Craze had the best stats in the world. Crazed.
Well, he
definitely did
Toby,
last week.
They made me make a bold prediction. You make a bold statement. Is Craze the best pound for pound Gears of War player in the world right now?
Oh,
you go talk about his stats.
You're asking Toby sit on the fence, Campbell.
That's tough to say. Okay, that's really, really tough to say until we see again direct competition. That's the issue with predictions, regionally, is we haven't seen anything apart from pro leagues. I don't think it's fair to say that he'd be the best pound for pound. It's just that statistically speaking, he has been amazing at putting in impact for his team.
Say it with your chest, Toby. Is he the best?
Yeah, I'd like to see individually how they do now on this game. I mean, Phelpsy of one player as an example, he has been very vocal of his opinions about this game. Lots of negativity coming from him, or criticism. But he has always said that this shotgun is far better than what we saw on Gears 4. Individually, shotgun battle-wise, these are very, not only really talented, raw skill-wise, but also very smart players, as Crazed stat line suggests. And I think with this new shotgun EU's finest, that's an advantage to them as well, as they're not necessarily spammy with A button, as we see a lot of these new generation, or current generation, I should say, at this point with Gears 5, North American players, think of Xyz. They come from Gears 3. They use the hard aims as much as anyone else. And I think, if anything, that component of Gears 5 benefits them more so than previous. I'm looking to see what they can do.
Excellent. Just to further, actually, okay. So I mean, Crimson's caught him up a little bit, but he's still sitting at a 3.23.
So good. And that, bearing in mind, is despite, as a team, them not doing as well. Craze is still putting in the shift, and Crimson's and whatnot.
So right.
But then you get the argument: is NRG playing harder teams, and so you don't see Mental having a similar stat line just because it's harder to get.
Oh, they're just sort of on the same playing field, Okay, so he has the second most eliminations in Europe and the second least deaths.
That's huge. Like, come on.
That's
mental.
Amazing. It's not like
all right. I don't want to mess this up and sound really terrible. What flag is Crazed under? Is he Welsh?
Scottish?
What is he?
Scottish.
What is
he?
He's Scottish?
He's Scottish, yeah.
So is that why? Is because Scots have that history of being crazy good fighters? Is that what it is?
Maybe that's what it is. I mean, Saki is 10 eliminations ahead of him. But so put it this way. Crazed has got 346 eliminations. Saki has 356. Crazed has 107 deaths. Saki has 99 more deaths, but 10 more kills.
That's what I mean.
It's crazy.
What I mean.
My man, did you just say 99?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna go to sleep on that. I'll be back. I gotta go sleep on the fact that my man has 99 more deaths.
I will say Saki has the most deaths and the most kills of everybody in Europe, which I love. I'm fully for it. Just get amongst it.
Somebody needs to check his blood pressure during matches. They might need to get a yoga instructor instead of a coach.
It's like
calm him down every now and again.
Call-outs in the game. Saki, what you doing? Fucking fighting, bro. I'm fighting.
I'm shooting someone. Bear with me.
Which I love to see. TJ is not too far on the deaths as well. 203 for him. But yeah, these stats always interest me. I mean, the Crimson's is impressive as well. It's 281 kills and 92 deaths, so the 3.05.
Wow.
I mean, the top 5 KDAs are all EU's finest.
Can I ask a possible stupid question? If you've got the stats right in front of you, something that I'm curious to see, because when I watch, I like the stats. I try to pay attention to them. But a lot of the times I'm more of a team chemistry guy. I like to see how teams play as a unit. What team, if you can tell me decently quickly, if it's going to take too damn long, don't worry about it. What team has the most players kind of consistently in the same part of the pack? Because based on the way they play, I would say it's got to be Obey or Damage.
Based on what?
Like KDA type thing. Like
KDA, I would say that it's EU's finest is the top 5. so there's that, but I think
if you took them out of the break, because we kind of I even said it on Cheddar, I know that they're built to be the best team in Europe. They're built for it. That's what their job was to be. But on those other 3 teams, is there any of them that are right there similar in the same pack? Like there's 3 of them together or 2 of them together? What
I would say is the top 5 is EU's finest. The 6th is Dragons from Rated R, and they're last in the leaderboard.
High impact players.
Yeah. Outside of that, Obey Alliance are mostly in and around the middle, and then there's a couple of rated on R damage. So yeah, I mean, Obey Alliance are there for the most part. Yeah, I would say Obey Alliance in terms of straight KDR, sort of the second ranked team, so to speak.
I hate to say this, that's that's a great positivity note for them going into a tournament setting on LAN. If you're good enough to play with your team, especially on LAN, with the way the game changes from online to being on LAN. I know we're the game that prides itself on being the most different game on LAN, which I don't know if that's a point of pride or not, but when you get there, if you're good enough at playing with your team and having those stats be similar, it shows that you're playing together. It shows that your deaths and your kills are kind of all dependent upon, or your KDA is all kind of dependent upon who you're around in the map. That's a great sign for Obey going forward. That'd be my takeaway from that. Yeah, I know EU's finest has that top 5 spots, but that's just me.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, so we've delved into the stats. We'll go into some of the questions and maybe ask some more, because I've seen Warrior Guns. What's the overall kill stats for numbers? Now, I don't really know what you mean, bro. I'll be honest, but you're sitting directly in the middle of things. Warrior Guns, you're 10th. 292 eliminations, 178 deaths. I'm curious who's got the most breaks. I want to see if there's like any standouts here. Have a look.
Most breaks.
Not really. Oh well, actually, this actually taps into something else. Who do you think has the least breaks?
Crazed.
Yeah,
he's in too many fights.
Passive.
He's breaking hills, man. He's in too many fights.
Passive.
It explains it, bro. It explains
Passive. Warrior Guns, we are looking to releasing the full stats at some point.
I'm telling you right now, Tunny, like if you're looking for Craze, he's not nowhere near a hill. It's like, where's Craze? He's fighting that guy over there.
I'm staying alive, bro. I'm staying alive. That's it.
Warrior Guns, we are looking to get the stats released, but we just want to try and do it in the best way possible, so that is accessible. We don't want to just throw it out like just. I know we're tweeting them, but we're using them as like content to a point. But we do want to release them properly at some point. But we're just trying to figure out the best way to do that. We'll keep you up to date, mate. Don't worry. But I mean, look, if you guys want anything, like, you know, we don't mind probably, you know, sharing and whatnot. Right now, though, we're sort of using it as a tool for me, Fruit, and Toby for the broadcast and that sort of shit. But yeah, I think we'll try and release it. But anyway, let's go to the questions in the chat from where I put above. So the first one was actually Kenny's that he asked beforehand. He was asking all three of us. He saw this on Twitter. What do you think now? Best out of 3 or best out of 5?
Oh,
I think specifically, if we're speaking San Diego and the fact that it's single elim.
Oh, best of 5. You'd argue at that point, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Maybe you could look like up the map count when it gets to that single limb part right at the end.
Yes, maybe when it gets slightly later.
Maybe just that at least.
Yeah, maybe like a quarterfinals or something, or maybe maybe semifinals, something like that. I think it's definitely something they can think about, because inevitably they set up their tournaments based on max time that a series could take. That should drop down to a point now, at least. You should be like on an accelerated schedule there now, you would think. Yeah. So maybe there's room to have them at the end of the tournament. I mean, I ain't going to try and say that I'm waiting for PGL and trying to organize a tournament, like in terms of like trying to set up what games and how many games you can get done. But I think it's a good question to ask.
Something we've not mentioned so far, which I'll throw in right now because it's a good topic for a best of 5. Best of 5 allows more modes to be put in, to be thrown in. Think of like Call of Duty. I see you, Chris. Exactly. And now that Escalation is first to 5, it's more on a more similar playing field to say like plausible. Execution could be first to 5. I would actually put Execution as first to 4. I mean,
or some sort of Execution mode, because we know Execution itself is not going to come in.
Exactly. We'd hope, we'd hope if King the Hill comes in, I think that it's highly unlikely we get King the Hill, but if it came in, fixed respawns, perfect maps, execution variant, you'd have an OBJ, and with a best of 5 series, and with it being 2 to 3 more modes, we could literally have mode-specific maps. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Mode-specific maps. You could have the best escalation maps, and you could have only the perfect maps for the execution mode. So hey, don't worry if there's stalemate still. We could just do a non-stalematey map, no canals, for example. In the extreme sense. But
I think you underestimate people's ability to run away.
Perhaps, yes. Perhaps there is a way. I think that's a possibility at that point. Whether TC and others would want to go down that route, different question altogether. But yeah, best of 5, I think, going back to the question, for single limb, it would only make sense. We saw complaints after complaints when Gears 4 first came out, and everyone realized, for online tournaments, we're doing best of 1. Wait, what? And everyone quickly realized, it's because of the length of the mode. We have no choice. There we go. We better perform great on this first map, otherwise we're out of the tournament. And yeah.
Yeah. What are we thinking, Colin? Are you agreeing with that sentiment?
Both of y'all are gonna hate my response to this.
Shit.
Devil, I've got.
Look, no,
he's gonna say best out of 7.
I'm a walk before you. I'm a crawl before you walk kind of guy, and I'm a walk before you run kind of guy. I think what Coalition has done and what PGL will do and follow suit, because they're the main partner of Gears Esports, is they're going to see this. They're going to go, all right, look, we changed the game mode. We got shorter rounds. We got shorter maps. We got shorter game types. Brilliant. Great job. Love it. Let's see how it's instituted over these next couple of weeks. They come to San Diego. Not going to change it for San Diego. We go best of 3. We make teams win their best of 1. You play for your life each and every single map. You make teams play perfect from the time they walk through the doors to the time they leave with the trophy. End of story. After San Diego, you're going to see Coalition go back and probably look through and see how weapon placements were, see how spawn variants were, see how maps play it out, see how PGL handles things. And if they decide to go in the future to go best of 5, that's perfectly fine with me. But there's still a big part of me that loves the idea that you have to play so perfectly. I don't want excuses at the end of the weekend. I want you to play the best damn Gears of War anybody's ever seen on the face of the planet Earth and leave with a damn trophy at the end of it. This leaves you no room for error, and I love that about this because we got enough human error in the world as it is. Make you play perfect every single round, win your 5 rounds, move on with your life, and then win another 5 until you get to that best of 3 in the championship type deal. You know what I'm saying, dog? Like, you got to do it. You got to win.
You got to win. You got to win.
Like, we always hear him say, hit your shots. Well, if you don't hit your shots, that's human error. But
don't
if you
miss,
hit
don't
your
lose.
shots and you're playing perfect, boom, look at
don't
that.
miss, don't lose. It's one of my
there we
favorite
go,
sayings.
baby. Love it. Love it. Look, and at the end of the day, if they want to go ahead and do, best of 12, I'm good with that. It's whatever. I don't give
Best of 12.
more Gears for me.
Every map.
That's
We're
more
not doing
Gears
videos,
for me.
you're playing every map.
That's right. You got to beat them on every map at some point. You got to play.
So that sort of extends into the second question from Sean, which is lower round count. Do you think there should be future events should be double a limb? I don't think they changed that. I think that was not a decision made based on match length. I think that was just a tournament based what direction they want Gears of War to go in. I'm all right with single elim personally. I'm okay with it. I think, as you said, you have to be perfect all the time. And you just literally have to beat everybody, and you have no excuse. You have no chance to lose. So I don't think they changed that. How long is the trip overseas to San Diego? I'd imagine that must have taken a toll on everyone traveling. It's about a 11-hour flight. And speaking from somebody who would go over to cast rather than play, you got to be going early. You got to fix that pattern. Because actually, what I will say, and this is a weird one. From a jet lag perspective, I much prefer going to West Coast than East Coast. West Coast is so much of a time difference that it just fucks you so bad that you just get to that point because you're in a different planet. Whereas 5 is like that sort of short enough amount of time that your body is like never fully adjusting. Weirdly, if you get what I mean. So I think West Coast is the least worst. the West Coast.
It's the best of the bad, ladies and gentlemen.
The best of the bad. So I think to ultimately ask you a question without delving into myself and being narcissistic, there is I think it's I think it definitely is one of those things where you should be going over early, 100%.
Yeah, but we got Chick-fil-A on the East Coast, baby. I mean, come on now.
You can have Chick-fil-A on the West Coast?
I know, but like we got the good ones. Like you got to go to the Bible Belt to get the good ones, baby.
But it isn't open on a Sunday, and it kills me every time because I only ever like when I'm over there, it'll be like Sunday after the event. I'll be like, oh, Chick-fil-A. No. Although saying that, most of the time when I do like travel home on a Monday, at least they do have them in a lot of airports.
Boom.
There is that.
Boom.
Big fan of Chick-fil-A. Easily my favorite, most American like takeaway place. I think Chipotle is good. But I think there's stuff over here that's just as good. I'm not delving into this. I can talk about. I'm hungry. We'll be here for ages.
Well, look, if you're hungry, like I'm just gonna make it worse because I'm gonna give you a plug for that side of the pond. My wife's family's English, so they brought over Jammy Dodgers when they came over for the wedding. Those are crack. I think that's what they are. They're crack.
They're good. Oh, Colin, we should get you to try some shit like fig rolls and chocolate hobnobs. Man!
Look, I'm fat as it is, baby. I don't need all that shit.
If they decide to bring anybody European over to any of these events, then maybe I'll bring you some biscuits. But
yes, let's go.
Okay, moving away from how long the trip to San Diego is. Why San Diego single illumination? Well, it's single elimination, but
Illuminate.
I think that it's just I said. I mean, we sort of half touched on it. I feel like it's the route to go down. I think it's a less forgiving route, isn't it? So I like it personally.
Yeah.
A curious question here: which region do you think has the most kills? I think somebody already half mentioned this, is that you would have to divide NAs in half.
I just
said do it by division. Which division do you think has the most kills?
My guess would be LATAM, because they're just so aggressive constantly and they just play for kills, I think, so often that if I had to guess as a totality, they just throw themselves in at team fights in that region.
I'd say EU, because of just how many friggin' rounds y'all play. More people gotta die.
Could be that. One of these things. It's a hard question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a hard question. Answer. Right, let's have a little scroll down. Execution come back. No. I think that might be it. Spaceman, I don't want to hear it. I will literally ban you from this. Oh, yeah, okay. So Lisa, one of our admins, to point out that In-N-Out is fantastic as well. I do agree. I think In-N-Out, for the price, we'll not get into the burger talk, because we will literally be here for another hour. We could talk about In-N-Out. We could talk about Shake Shack. It's not the conversation everyone's here to listen to.
As the fattest guy in the room, I'm going to say I'm right and move on with my life.
I've never had any of these. I think I had 5 Guys.
You poor bastard. I gotta get you some good stuff.
The food is better in America. I'll say that. Like, food is better in America.
There's more options. However, I will disagree to a point.
All right, go on.
I just think there's more options. I think the range is bigger. I think sometimes you get some really, really good food, but sometimes you get really shit food. Whereas sometimes over here, I think it's just all like, it's all right. So
You've got a whole ass breakfast named after you. That gives you a leg up in that department.
Oh yeah, our breakfast. I don't get on the whole sweet stuff for breakfast. Colin, you're sending me down a route I don't want to go down here.
I'm a bad influence, man. You can't get it on food. All right, again, that's the fattest guy in the room. If you start on food, I'll go with you. We'll go down this road together, baby.
Last question is from Big Matt Sean once again. Can you touch on halftime not changing? That has to be a mistake for me. So halftime is not changed apparently. So that would make it.
Yeah, that was a complaint actually of Raiden.
I would say that
wasn't changed.
Has to be a mistake.
You can win in one half. Currently.
That has to be a mistake.
Which is, you'd assume, is a mistake because halftime was part of the process, and as such, when if we go back to lives, that kind of matters a lot more, the lives now, because you don't have the halftime to reset. So pace of the game can be changed massively just based on that. So I think that's the most important part, is the lives not resetting anymore when it comes to halftime. But you just assume that would be changed in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake.
So
I would think. I don't see why they would intentionally keep that in.
That's a whoopsie. That's a whoopsie moment.
Yeah, I don't think that's part of the vision.
Like, and I think we're all saying that we think it's a mistake. It's probably one of those things where if you tweeted it at somebody, they would just confirm it and be like, yeah, that was the thing. There was like one line of code we didn't fix. They did a lot of other coding, so I guess that one line probably got shadowed out. I don't know how that works, guys. How does that work? Tell me how that works.
Oh, I don't know. We are not clever enough to distinguish how that works, but I think that it is one of these things that I think that's a mistake, and I think we'll see it patched fairly quickly. I think. Yep. I don't. In my head, I'm like, well, could it be something they want? But I don't see why you would.
No, I don't think so.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Do you do halftime after the third round now? What logistically would be the halftime now? Fourth round? It would technically be fourth round, right?
Yeah.
Fourth round, yeah.
Into the fourth round.
I'd go ahead and do it at 3. Screw it. Take it one round back and see what happens. Make rounds 1, 2, and 3 just a chaos fest. You could throw all your resources into 3 rounds and see what happens. If you can get up 3-0, come on now, baby.
If a team wins in one half, though, so be it. The other team doesn't deserve to play on, in my opinion, and have a half-time.
If you get 5-0'd, yeah.
If you get 5-0'd, that's what I mean.
You're getting 5-0'd. That's your problem, not ours.
Escalation, as we spoke about in the last Change of Gear podcast, last episode. I mean, 1st to 7. If a team goes down 5-0, 6-0, they don't deserve the chance of coming back. And the reason being is because we rarely ever saw that comeback. They're so rare that there's, statistically speaking, no point of playing on. So why would you? And as such, First to
You
5.
calling for a mercy rule, Toby? Is that what you calling for?
Mercy rule. Well, that's what we want in ranked. That's what we want in ranked. I think it was Razor Edge who tweeted that out at one point. It's been asked for many times. We see that in different in esports. Ranked play. If a team loses a player or something, we have a quitting problem. Throw a white flag up, surrender. Boom. You take the win. We go on to our next games. But yeah, first to 5, good thing. We're back to that topic.
We're back to that topic. I think we'll end because I think we'll be flogging a dead horse at this point. And I think we've went through that one quite a lot now, and I think it's nice a nice one to wrap things up on. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on, Colin. It's nice to.
Pleasure,
I don't think we've actually even spoken to each other. So it's
it's a lot of Twitter love.
Same.
It's all it is. It's a lot
That's
of
all
just
it is.
Twitter love.
It's
I
all it is.
admire you from afar. I'm like,
It-
so
Freaking handsome.
No, man. We don't need it. We don't need it. I mean, the love is appreciated, but I have somebody equally as handsome with me this week. Apparently, oh god, I can't believe I just said that about you. Toby's joining me on Monday instead of Fru. Not to say Fru isn't a handsome guy either, but he's not here. So, but yeah, Toby, you're here on Monday, or not here in London. Excited?
I'm in London. Yeah, I'm 4 hours away. I am
the same.
excited. Yeah,
About the same.
but yeah, I'm very excited. And I'm hoping I can carry on Fru's job just as well. And I'm sure we'll have a great broadcast, Chris. I do love commentating with you and this Pro League and the first to 5. I can't wait to cast over that for the first
you're
time.
the guinea pig. Fru doesn't have to worry about it. We're the guinea pigs. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, we've discussed plenty. As said, if any of you guys missed any of the episode and you do want to listen back, keep an eye on the EGL Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube as well. It's been going through the chat and whatnot. The links will all be all over the EGL Twitter. It comes on Spotify, Apple Music, Google. You can listen to a podcast. You can download it, listen to it offline when you're on plane, when you're train, whenever you want, whenever you're flying to San Diego. If you want to listen to it then. It's a really long time away, and we'll definitely have more episodes before then, but maybe you want to listen to them all. Either way, thank you very much to everybody who was in the chat. If you have any questions for next week, put them in the YouTube comments. I do check them, and we will answer them next week. But thank you to everybody for watching, and we will see you for the next episode.